everyone. I'm Maritza Barone and welcome to my podcast, Things You Can't Unhear. As a presenter with a focus on wellness, I have interviewed very many health professionals in my time and heard stories that have opened my eyes about the world we live in today. But I found the best bits that I take home with me and the things I heard that have changed my life are usually when the recording shuts off and we can talk in length behind the scenes. And that's the information that I want to share with you on this podcast. Today, I've got Leanne Oliver with us. She's a self-awareness mentor who specializes in energetic sensory development. She spent the last 35 years using her energy awareness to assist those looking for a connection to themselves and others. With an emphasis on personal growth, Leanne has encouraged many people to embark on a journey of self-discovery, leading them to embrace their talents and live fearlessly. And she has recently launched her book, The Uncommon Sense, which teaches us how to unblock the flow of success by engaging all of our senses. Hi, Leanne.
Hi, Maritza.
Thank you for being here today. I mean, you have such a wonderful wealth of experience over these last 35 years. So we're really grateful to have you on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure for me to be here. Thank you.
Now, I've been learning or trying to learn a lot about energy lately. So I'm intrigued to hear what you've got to say today. How does energy work in the work that you do with your client?
I think that how it works for me, especially in my one-on-one sessions, is that I am incredibly sensitive to energy, and I have developed my sensory awareness. So it's actually quite a profound level of awareness, so that when I see and feel shifts in people's energy, I'm able to register those, and therefore I can pick up on things that people can't pick up on themselves because of their blockages. The things that are holding them back in their lives. So often when we have a blockage, it really sort of sits, if you can imagine, it sort of sits right in front of our vision of our life, and we can't see through it. It's like a boulder. And so, there are other things that are going on, but often we're not aware of those things and which way we can go. So all we see is the blockage and we live the blockage. So in my work, it helps me to go beyond what others are able to connect to, and I can help them by alerting them, giving them a bit of an insight, if you like, into what sits beyond the boulder.
When you say blockages, because blockages can probably be caused by a lot of things, and is it another word for almost for a struggle that we've got? Because we've all got our own different struggles and our own different blockages, and it can come in so many different ways. It can be blockages of money, it can be blockages of love, it can be blockages of our careers. How do we define what particular blockage we have in order to lift it?
Well, as you say, there are many different ways in which we experience a blockage, and some people will be very aware of blockages, perhaps in their financial situation.
So it's hard to ignore, right?
That's right. You've got it there right in front of you. You can't afford to pay the gas bill, so it's like, that's pretty obvious. And we tend to focus on our fear that is around these things. So, if for argument's sake, say we have a blockage in relationships, well, perhaps a fear that could be fueling that blockage, if you like, could be that there's no one out there for me. I'm going to wind up alone. It could be something like perhaps my partner's going to reject me. What will everyone say? So it's often linked to fear. So fear is a really a number one driver in when it comes to blockage. It can also be the beliefs that we've accumulated are, really in direct relationship to our previous experiences. So we could be trapped by our poor decisions. We could have made decisions in the past that have had a particular result, and we weren't happy with that result. And so now we're fueled with self-doubt, and those kinds of things will often be a huge blockage for people. Sometimes a blockage can be not wanting to let go, not wanting to let go of an idea, or something that we felt that we deserved, or something that we can't understand. How did that go wrong?
And these are obviously some signs that we have a blockage. Do you think most people out there have some type of blockage?
Oh, for sure. I mean, if you're living life, of course, you're going to have some blockages. Some will, be appropriate to their time, and we need to work with them within a very specific time. But what I find with a lot of the clients that I work with is that it's accumulated blockage. It's blockage that's been there for a very long time, and it's actually built up to such a degree that it's taken on a life of its own.
And obviously the first step to clearing it is to be aware of it.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. So really looking at the areas of your life that are not working, that's a great place for you to start, and identifying what is it about it that's not working. Maritza, I believe that, everything happens for a reason, and everything is appropriate to its time. So if something is happening right at this particular time, it is meant to be here. Meant to be here. So we need to look at, okay, what is happening, and do I keep repeating these experiences? Is there something that I keep going over and I can't seem to get past? Because that's a really a very pertinent sign that you are experiencing an actual ongoing blockage, or perhaps an accumulated blockage that then sort of starts to sort of become quite bulbous, really, and flows into other areas of your life.
It's so true. I mean, you always hear about those people who are constantly losing their job, or are always falling sick, or, there's that pattern that you see in the same people, or their car's constantly breaking down, or they've always got financial issues. There's the patterns that you see in people that you're like, why does it keep happening to them? There's millions and billions of people in this world, and that just keeps happening to them. I know a friend of mine recently on Facebook listed all of the health issues that she had over the last 5 years, and it was extraordinary. Like, things that you wouldn't expect to happen to an ordinary person had happened to her over this 5-year period in regards to her health. And it's just like, well, how does that keep happening to one person? And how does she stop that? Because for me, that was really obvious that there was a blockage there. And how does she stop that? How do we stop this in everyday life?
Well, when you refer to health in particular, usually our health issues are very much linked with our emotional self. So it's usually blocked emotion that causes health issues to arise. And, those things can be very complex. We feel a particular way because there's something that often that we don't like, or that we don't understand, or that we have a belief around that says, this is not fair. I might have a belief that I don't deserve this. It might be fueled with anger in there, which will just intensify everything, really, dramatically. And what happens is we feel a particular way over a long period of time. And if we feel something long enough, in the energy, the emotion is the stuff that moves things around the system or not. So if we're feeling something and we become locked in that feeling, and we become locked in it long enough, it will produce a side effect. And the side effect of the blockage will be the actual illness itself, or the condition, or however it's showing up.
It's so fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating, because by what you're saying, the key to health is really clearing any stored emotions from the past, or even thinking into the future that you might have. But it's really clearing those thoughts and emotions so it doesn't manifest into something physical.
Absolutely. So the last port of call is the physical body, the physical self, our physical experiences. And so if they've made it to there, then they've gone through quite a process to actually show up in the physical. So this gives us the opportunity to be able to become aware of what is actually manifested, and then we can begin to work backwards, if you like. So, really considering, okay, well, what is it that's showing up? Do I have inflammation, for example? Now, inflammation is, often associated with a lot of stored anger. And, this shows up in the body in, a variety of ways. Look at where it's shown up in the body. Is it in your joints? Well, perhaps it's to do with flexibility. Perhaps there's something here that you don't understand about that. But I don't think we do need to beat up on ourselves about that. I think that what we need to do is just really look and really come to this with an openness that allows us to, be transparent, if you like, with ourselves and just witness what is going on so that we can then begin to address the blockage.
Absolutely. The body is such a powerful and clever tool to instruct us to know what's going on within, isn't it? It's just incredible.
Certainly. It's a marvelous instrument when it's functioning well.
Yeah, look, I've heard many times, even with stomach pain, for example, that if you're having recurring stomach issues, that you're not digesting life as well as you could be. And there's so many examples of this that we can learn about. I suppose it just takes time to really read those signs and figure out where they're coming from, rather than just running to the medicine cabinet and taking another Panadol and a painkiller and just trying to clear it and just numb it temporarily.
Well, yes, because often people feel that, if they can't feel it, then somehow or another they've dealt with it. But that's not true. It's there for a reason, and it's showing up to alert you that there is some deeper cause that is having a profound effect on your body, on your life, and that needs to be examined.
And this can really benefit our whole lives, can't it? Even, I know you talk about relationships a lot in your book.
I think our relationships are definitely a wonderful platform for us to learn about ourselves in relation to someone else. And, when we're having a relationship, I think it's important to recognize that we are in what I would call an exchange of energy. So we put energy out, and then the person we're having a relationship with also puts energy out, and we receive that energy. And so it's moving in and out consistently. Now, if one of those areas breaks down, if it's you or the other person that is not sending back that exchange of energy, then what will happen is the relationship will fall apart. So that exchange is the very thing that keeps the relationship buoyant. So if it's not being exchanged, it means that the relationship will actually break down. Now, if the quality of the energy is not good, if it's a negative exchange, then that will also have an effect. So the person might be exchanging energy with you, but what is the quality of the energy? And that will land, that will come back and land. What is the quality of the energy that you're sending out?
It's so true. I mean, when we first meet someone, I heard you talk about this in your podcast as well. When we first meet someone, the energy is pretty much electric, and you have that mutual connection with them, and it's so exciting. And then over time, it sort of changes into real life situation, and stresses come into play, and maybe children and bills and stuff like that. How do we keep that beautiful, fresh energy up with each other?
I think it's very important to recognize that we need to be present with our relationships. They are constantly changing and moving and hopefully growing. And we need to be constantly aware of what it is that we are exchanging within our relationships. And if both parties are aware of this, then you're more likely to keep your relationship in health. So if you are aware of, okay, I've been very negative, the way that I've just replied to that, or whatever it might be, then you have an opportunity in that moment to adjust your behavior and to adjust the exchange. Now, getting back to what you were saying about, when we first meet, I think that that's a really incredible experience that most people can relate to, because we're so filled with optimism and positivity and excitement, and these aspects of self tend to put us on a frequency with the other person that actually allows us to have an exchange of energy that is usually quite positive and quite stimulating. And to keep up that level is very difficult to because energy has to move, and if you're on a high, it's safe to assume that where it's going to go is downward. And people get distressed by this. I don't think it needs to be a distressing thing. Your relationship, needs to be navigated in relation to your lives and to the circumstances that you're experiencing and exchanging together. And actually, there's all kinds of things that come on board. So people will say, oh my God, the pressure of, wanting to, get pregnant, for example. That put a lot of pressure on our relationship. Well, it simply means that the exchange of energy at that particular time was perhaps magnified around this particular aspect of experience. And that has caused an intensity or an imbalance. And it's also forced a lot of the other interactions into perhaps the background.
Yeah.
And we then focus on what's in the foreground.
We really allow ourselves to get fixated on small problems or large problems or whatever they are. They are issues in our lives, but we do allow ourselves to get fixated on them. And I think you said before something really obvious and really important is that being present and being mindful is the key. Now, when we look at your book, it's called the Uncommon Sense, and I want to talk about our senses because they're probably the most important things for us to be able to read our intuition ourselves. Can we talk through how the senses are important with the work that you do?
Absolutely. The senses are absolutely fundamental when it comes to our experience. The way in which we take in the outside world is through our sensory realm. And the most obvious realm here is the physical realm. So looking at, basically the five senses, so sight and smell and sound and touch, and a taste, of course. And what happens is we are receivers, if you like, and we're receivers of the experience, and we channel these experiences into our inner being through these physical ports. And these physical ports allow us to know what it is that we are engaging with. And then we have a history or a dialogue that we establish over time that then allows us to connect with the idea of something or our experience of something or the feeling of something. And then we're able to process it and respond to it. So predominantly, they are the mediators of the outside world. So with no sensory realm, we cannot communicate with the outside world. So we need to have this realm of being. We need to connect, I believe, more consciously with this realm so that we don't lose connection to the world and then to ourselves. So we bring this information back in, and then that allows us to connect with our next sensory realm, which is the subtle senses, which are the senses of the mind. Mm-hmm. And these senses, they're very useful because they allow us to really interpret information and to, for example, I don't have to literally be looking at a bucket, if you like, to know what a bucket is. If someone said, now, can you see a bucket in your mind? Do you know what a bucket is? Or they might be talking about a bucket. Mm. And all of a sudden that visual is coming up in my mind. So I have something there that I can understand what this person is talking about. They're talking about a bucket. The bucket's not present right now, but I can see the bucket. I know what the bucket is. And I do this through the subtle senses. So I'm able to store information, and all my understandings will be here in this subtle realm. So where we go to from there, and I go into in the book, is looking beyond these two realms of sensory experience and moving out into the extended senses. Now, the extended senses are incredibly important when it comes to things like creating more flow in our lives, to really understand synchronicities, and to really connect with what I would call universal consciousness. So something that goes beyond our immediate experience, but actually sits within the realm of being. So it allows us to tap into, it's like a doorway, if you like, these extended senses into the universal consciousness. So it allows us to access higher knowledge. It's untainted by the physical aspects of self.
It's so important. It's like the answer is coming from in. It's like this. Would you call it the sixth sense in a way?
Well, the sixth sense is more positioned within the subtle senses, and the sixth sense is incredibly, the difference between the sixth and the seventh senses fundamentally is the sixth sense is more personal, if you like. When we use our intuition, it is for personal use mostly. So our intuition is used for personal use. If we expand the intuition to encompass others, if we allow the intuition to move beyond ourself and our own experiences, then what happens is we move into the seventh sense.
This is so exciting. Who knew we had so many senses?
There's a lot more than that. And it's really up for debate at the moment, how many senses we actually do have. But
so how many do you believe we have?
Look, I think the jury's out on this one because I keep sort of coming across more. And I think that we don't know enough about this area. I really think that we're going to, as time goes on, that we are going to discover so much about, the human experience and what we can access. I think it's phenomenal.
It is. It's very, very exciting. Is it something that's sort of being backed by science a little bit more as time goes by?
Oh, definitely. Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
That's actually quite exciting because a lot of people need the backing from science to fathom it in their minds, don't they?
Of course they do, yes. And look, I think that that's the exciting thing. I think that science is supporting many of these things that, I have been experiencing for a long, long time. And, I'm just really glad that I've been able to see that, it's being backed up by science. So it's a lovely time that we live in. And there's lots and lots of information that's changing as we speak.
It is an exciting time. Now, going back to our senses, if we want to, I know now we're aware of them and there's more than we knew, which is exciting, but if we want to extend or test perhaps our senses to make sure that we're using them properly, and we want to go further than just, using them on the surface level, do you have any tips or techniques that you do to do that?
Okay. So I think that it's important, like all things in life, to have a balance between, what it is that we're experiencing sort of in the outer world and then what we're experiencing within ourselves. And so I often talk about the inner self and then the outer self, and the navigation between those two experiences. Now, the senses, if we want to extend on them, if we want to improve our sensory awareness, the first thing that I would recommend is that people start using them consciously. Now, when I work with people, most people are surprised when we begin to isolate the senses, how powerful they actually are, because we very rarely use one sense on its own. We're using them in combination. And that's why, the philosopher Aristotle, he coined that phrase, common sense. And it's because the senses are common to each other. So we're using more than one at a time quite often. So what can happen is that they can kind of blur together, and we're not really aware of the power of their individuality, which consequently means that, one will overpower the other. So the most common for those people who actually have their sense of sight is their sight. That seeing is the most dominant sense for most people. Most people, the seeing, you'll see something and there'll be other senses involved, but you will really hook into the looking and not really be able to decipher the other alignment of the other senses. So in order to become stronger, I often say to people, the best way to do this is to isolate those senses. So a good way to come into contact with the senses consciously is to set yourself a bit of an exercise for the day. And that exercise might be that in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening, what you're going to do is you're going to consciously connect with one of your senses. And you can make it a different sense each time if you like. When you discover which sense is, perhaps a little bit underdeveloped, you might like to focus more on that particular sense as you move forward. But predominantly, to get started, I would say, look, perhaps in the morning, okay, I'm going to consciously, whatever time it is, I've all of a sudden become aware that I am going to consciously connect with a sense. So I'm going to use my physical senses to do this. So I'm going to connect, first of all, with the listening. So I'm going to connect with my hearing. And I am just going to close my eyes so that I isolate the hearing. And I'm just going to listen. And in that moment, I am going to bring all of my attention to the listening. And what happens, and what the listeners will find, is that the attention then, it actually awakens the awareness. So the awareness actually starts to expand and more becomes known in that moment. And so you will pick up really fine sounds, really distant sounds, and things that you didn't notice before. And this is really sharpening this particular sense. And then in the afternoon, you might stay with that for a couple of minutes. And then in the afternoon, you do the same. Once again, just anywhere in your afternoon, okay, I'm going to bring my conscious attention to my sense of taste, the taste in my mouth right now, in this very moment. And you'll begin to really feel the taste buds. You'll be able to distinguish very particular waves of saliva that are sitting on the tongue that actually release certain flavors in certain pockets and areas of the tongue, because the tongue is such a sensitive organ. So once again, you bring the attention there, then the awareness will actually open up. It will expand the experience. More will become known. And what it does primarily is that it brings you into the present moment.
Mm-hmm. As you was talking through that, I thought, I'm going to try it as you're saying it. And it is so peaceful when you do it. And it's almost like working out a muscle and building that muscle. It's like, if you want abs, you've got to sit there and do the sit-ups. This is like working out the muscle to increase your senses. I really, really love it. And being mindful is so, so important, and being present, because this day and age, we are completely overstimulating our minds, and we have that monkey mind just going crazy most of the time, and so many distractions that are around us. So coming back to the present moment is so completely key. And that is a great tool that you've just given us.
Yes, and I also think too, Maritza, is that the connection that this allows you to experience is vital. Because you said it, our society, the time in which we live right now, we're so scattered with our attention, and this causes disconnection. Mm-hmm. We've got to be across so many things, in the one moment. And I think that to, really put the emphasis on the connection.
And then you mean the connection to ourselves?
The connection to ourselves, the connection to the experience, the connection to a moment, the connection to the sense. Yes. Yes, absolutely. And what this does is it builds an awareness of this very particular kind of connection. And when we become aware of something, we create more of it in our lives. So it doesn't matter almost what we become aware of. Whenever we become aware of something, we actually become more, that experience tends to magnify.
It's like what I was talking about before with my friend with the health issues that keep popping up. She's so aware of these health issues, so they keep coming back up in new different ways.
That's exactly it. And so I talk about in my book actually about a very particular system that we're all working with, that we're absolutely, most of us are unaware of this, and it's called the RAS, and the RAS stands for Reticular Activation System, and it's a system that is in play, and it's happening through our retina. And what happens is our retina is scanning for these particular events, circumstances, and so on, and it will tune us in and align us to almost like a radar to focus and to actually find these things within our experience. So we have this happening. Now, a really simple way to know of this experience is that, now, I don't know whether or not you've experienced this, Maritza, but I certainly have. Say you're going to buy a car, and you think, what sort of car am I going to buy? I think I'm going to buy a Ford. So you go along and you see this blue Ford and you fall in love with it, and you think, oh my goodness, it's so unusual. I love this color, and, I think it suits all my needs, and you get really excited about it. And, you think, oh, this is just wonderful. And so you come away and, you're waiting for the dealer to get the car ready for you. And you're driving down the road, and, often as you leave the car yard, and here comes a blue Ford exactly the same, that comes flying by you.
So true.
And all of a sudden you're, oh goodness, this one, I've never seen that before. And then, of course, the next day, similar thing happens. Oh my goodness, there's another one. Look at that.
Because we're subconsciously looking for it, right?
Yes. It's come through our experience, and we've connected an emotion with it. Now, this is the power of the emotions. If the emotions get involved and we get excited, or even when we're upset about something, it can cause things to come gushing at us as well. So we need to be careful of the frequency that we're operating in, whether it's a higher or a lower frequency, so a positive or a negative frequency. So if we feel bad about something, that can often attract these things to us as well, even though we don't want it.
So true.
And that's the health issue that, of course, you were talking about before, can certainly fall into that category.
Now, I think it's so important that we make sure our bodies and our minds are healthy. And in your book, you do talk about how to best enhance and make our bodies thrive. And sleep is a topic that comes up in that. And I sort of want to delve into sleep because I think it is so important. And a lot of us are not getting enough sleep, whether it's just an insomnia issue or if you've got young children or if you work a lot, whatever the issues are. Why is sleep so important in our rest and recovery?
Well, when we sleep, what happens if you think about this? We're collecting experiences during the day, and we're having thoughts and feelings about these experiences. And at the end of the day, it's an opportunity for us in our sleep process to download that information from our conscious being into our subconscious minds. So this is our storage tank for all of our experiences, our memories, and so on. And when we sleep, and it gives us an opportunity for us to completely download into that lovely little filing system called the subconscious, and it will help then to clear the mind. So it's a bit like taking everything off the bench and putting it away in the pantry. So you're clearing the mind for the next day. Now, of course, the body has other systems. It's not just the mind that this works with. There are lots of systems in the body, our drainage system, there's loads of systems that I could talk about. But the body then goes into a tune-up of those systems, just in the way that similar sort of process of, clearing, if you like. And that happens within sleep. So sleep is very important as a part of our process to download and restore balance so that we're then in our optimal shape for the next day and we can meet whatever it is that we need to meet, and our physical self is able to support us in meeting whatever it is that we need to meet fresh. Basically fresh.
What do you think the ideal amount of time is for us to sleep overnight?
Look, I get asked this question a lot, and it seems to be variable for different people.
Yes, of course.
Some people need a lot of sleep. Some people don't need so much sleep. I think that you're rested when you wake up feeling fresh. If you wake up and you feel like you've been hit over the head with a block of wood, you've possibly slept too much or too little.
Yes. I mean, I've got two daughters, and one of them just falls asleep at the drop of a hat, and the other one takes about 9 hours to get to sleep. And it's a really exhausting experience for us to get her down at night, and she's 7. So, and my husband's the same. He takes a long, long time to get to sleep, but I'm out like a light. Why is it something that sort of plays on our minds that stops us from getting to sleep quickly, or is it a different type of blockage that we need to clear?
Look, I think it can be both, but in saying, perhaps in regards to your daughter, it's quite possibly the level of stimulation that your daughter is experiencing during the day. And again, it's very individual. We need to look at what our levels of stimulation are, and that is an area that I do cover in the book. I think some of us become overstimulated and we become very wound up. So whether that's through worry, whether that's through excitement, whether that's through something that play, even play can stimulate. And it takes us a little longer to unwind. So think of it like a top that you wind it up by, spinning it. And sometimes if we continually spin this top, what will happen is that it will take longer for that top to actually begin to slow down. So we need to look at our process. And yes, some people can turn off very quickly, and others, have great difficulty in doing this. So there are all kinds of things that can help us with this. But I would say taking the time to really understand your energy and how it is that you work. And you do this through observation. Direct experience tells us so much about how we function. And so really looking at, okay, well, I am a person that finds it really difficult to get to sleep, or, I have trouble, I'm so conscientious about my job or about my passions that, I can't get to sleep. I just can't turn it off. Well, it means that you're going to have to stop spinning that top a little bit earlier than perhaps the next person. So you're going to have to really start to wind down, and there's various ways to do that, of course. For some people, I often suggest meditation. It's a wonderful way to wind down. For some people, they can't meditate. It's too much of a wind down too quickly, and the mind starts to then accelerate. So they can't do this. So I'll say, okay, well, maybe go for a walk, or perhaps read for a little bit, but then again, be careful what you're reading, because sometimes there's something that's very stimulating within that. So it needs to be monitored how much stimulation you're receiving from what, and then doing the adjustments so that the top has time to actually slow down and then ultimately switch off.
I think we're going to have to start winding the house down at about 4:30 p.m. to get her to sleep by 7:30. But I think they're wonderful tips, and it's actually something that we have been doing, and in using essential oils in that mix as well, and just making sure it's a calm environment a few hours in the lead up to actually bedtime. So yeah, that's some incredible tips that you've given us there.
Well, I think, as you say, essential oils are really beautiful, and they're a wonderful way in which for us to extend our sensory experience as well, of course. So where it's not just about the thinking or the mind, it's about sort of, really connecting on another level. So that they're great, but there's music, there's all kinds of things that we can do. I find nature sounds really good as well. So sound of nature is very, of course, we're a part of nature, so we relate very well to nature, and it can really help to soothe and relax the being.
So much insight. Thank you, Leanne. I'm so glad you actually put a book together, because I have it here in front of me, and it's a gorgeous looking book, but it's something that you could probably pick up over time, over and over again, and get more out of it each and every time that you pick it up, because you may have a particular different issue in your life at that point, or a different struggle, and you're like, oh, now this time, at this point in my life, sleep's affecting me, or I'm not feeling healthy at the moment, or so it is a great tool. I'd love to know your personal story as to how the book came about.
So the book was a 6-year project, and it was something. The catalyst for the book came from my own imbalance in my own health, and I had some major surgery, and I have a genetic condition that I had to have the balance restored, and it was a major surgery, and I found myself really confronted by the possibility that perhaps I may not come through the surgery. And, as we all know, there is an element of risk when it comes to even the simplest of surgeries. And it was suggested that this was a major concern. And I had started to think about that inside myself. And I actually recognized that, I felt really quite satisfied with my life, what I had experienced in my life, what I had chosen to give my energy and attention to. And I felt good about that. And there was a moment where I connected to that and thought, okay, if this is my time, this is my time. But then when I had thought that, I thought, well, okay, if I come through this okay, what is it that I would like to realize going forward? What would I like to do as I move forward with my life? And it didn't take very long for the idea of a book to pop into my mind. And even though I had invested heavily in other people's experiences, and I'd placed a lot of my knowledge within those individuals, I hadn't really, apart from myself, I hadn't really kind of put a lot of it in one place. And so I thought, well, perhaps it would be good to do that. So I woke up, of course, and the first thought I had was, well, I guess I'm going to write a book. And I went home and I started it immediately. I climbed into bed and with my recovery, and I got my computer out and I started writing. And it's led me to this particular point.
Oh, well, I'm so glad that you recovered and you're back to premium health and here sharing this story today, because over the years you've enhanced so many people's lives, and I think you've got many, many more to go. I know you've worked with a lot of people in my family and enhanced their lives in many ways. So keep doing what you're doing. And if there's anyone listening out there who might want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, of course, they can follow me on Instagram, which is Leanne Oliver Official. Mm-hmm. And I also have Facebook. And of course, if they'd like to contact me through my website, they're welcome to do that. It's leanneoliver.com.
Fantastic. Well, as I said, keep doing what you're doing, because you're changing many lives out there for the better. And I think the more people that hear this stuff and connect with themselves and clear their energy blocks and go from struggle to flow, the better, and we'll all live in a happier and healthier reality. So thank you again, Leanne, for being part of the show.
Thank you, Maritza.
Now, if you would like to subscribe to the show, please do. And if you've heard something today on this episode that you think someone out there might benefit from, please do share it with them. Be happy, be healthy, be conscious, and be kind.